Hello, 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 and welcome to an emergency podcast of the Full Quota podcast. We did mention to you yesterday that we'd be coming back to just give you a sense of what Rob Walters has decided in terms of the T20 World Cup. So, welcome to you all. This is going to be a quick and short pod, but most importantly, before we do anything else, I do apologize. Is to follow us on X at Full Quota Pod, subscribe to One World Sports Radio YouTube channel, and also follow us at Full Quota Podcast on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Everything's there at the bottom for you to look. Obviously, there's two of us here. So Tim is here. Tim, how are you doing?
Reasonably calm, considering we've just had a Proteas squad announcement. Normally there's a lot of anger and furore, but I think all in all, can't be too many major complaints.
Yes, I don't think there's a lot of anger happening around, but there are some questions and there's some disappointed people, and it's going to be quite an intriguing one for everyone else. And so we thought maybe we just do this show justice and talk about the team. So today, just to set the scene, the South African limited overs coach Rob Walters announced his World Cup squad for the World Cup in the USA and the West Indies. He announced a 15-man squad with 2 traveling reserves. It is noted that there is space for 2 more traveling reserves to go there, so we're going to talk about that. But he also then announced a team to tour the West Indies in a T20 series in preparation for the World Cup. Obviously, dependent on the IPL and everything else, that team is going to move around. But there's some notable selections from the SA20 that are there, and I think we're going to talk about that slightly later after the World Cup squad. So let's talk about the World Cup squad. I'll put up the slide, the graphic, and then we'll just name them all, and then Tim will just discuss that, right? So the Proteas World Cup squad going to the West Indies and USA in tour this year starts with Aiden Markram, the captain, Othniel Bartman from the Dolphins, Gerald Coetzee, Quinton de Kock, Bjorn Fortuin, Reza Hendricks, Marco Jansen, Heinrich Klaassen, Keshav Maharaj, David Miller, Anrich Nokia, Kagiso Rabada, Ryan Rickleton, Tabré Shamsi, and Tristan Stubbs. That's the 15 guys going to the World Cup. The 2 traveling reserves are Nandre Berger and Lungi Ngidi. First thing here for me, Tim, was Nandre Berger and Lungi Ngidi. When I did my team on Twitter, and you can find it on Twitter, I had Vian Mulder in here, but we'll talk about Vian's case right now. But my thing was, it was between Bjorn Fortuin and Lungi Ngidi, and I can see Lungi Ngiti's in. I didn't have Anrich Nokia, but Nandre Berger could find himself very unlucky, Tim, to not make the full 15, especially with the form that Nokia is in.
Certainly, I think if you look at the squad and overall, it's who's done well over the last 12 months or so, not who's done well over the last from SA20 and the last T20 competition. So that sort of thinking has been quite obvious. But yes, from a Berger perspective, I think he will be slightly disappointed. I think he'll be, if he thinks about it, he'll be okay because he knows he's there. He's right there. He's on the cusp. He's playing the Proteas. Everybody wants to go to a World Cup, so he will be disappointed. But you can make a good case for both in this selection. There's a case for both. Let's put it that way.
Yes, there is a case for both, and I think Tim, you put it on the nail head. It's the one time in South African cricket where we have options from a bowling perspective and also options from a batting perspective. From an all-round perspective, you kind of feel like Marco Jansen being considered probably the only all-rounder in this side. Obviously, in this format, Aiden Markram is considered an all-rounder, and he's going to be very important with his off-spin because we've taken 2 left-arm spinners in Keshav and Bjorn Fortuin. Bjorn deserves to be there, even though they're samey. I don't even mind having both of them playing, Tim, in a game, and I really was happy with that. But the other side of the coin is we went with the 1 extra bowler and 1 less all-rounder in Vian Mulder. And to a certain extent, it might come back to bite us because to a certain extent, Marco Jansen at 7, even in this format, is a little bit too high. But having Jan Mulder at 7 makes a little bit more sense, as he has the ability to also come up into the middle order should there be a collapse. If you're 20 for 3, instead of having David Miller walk in, you can send Jan Mulder in there and trying to rebuild the thing. And so I kind of thought maybe Rob missed the trick there and not having him in there. But I think he'd be the one person in South Africa who's truly, truly disappointed not to be even a traveling reserve.
Yes, I think if I was picking a team, I would have gone with the 2 spinners and Markram. I don't think that spin's going to have a massive effect on this tournament. Yes, important, but I think perhaps we've gone with one too many. If we're talking about, as you say, we're talking about individuals who we could feel hard done by. It's Vian. Vian has been sensational throughout the season. He really has knocked down that door. So it will be a blow to him. But at least he is in the reckoning with the West Indies series. He is there. He is in the reckoning. He is a part of Rob's plans, clearly. So that is a positive to take out of it. But as I said earlier, everybody wants to go to the World Cup, and he will be disappointed because he knows he has done the business in both formats. That's what they were asked him to do. He's now done it, and he still hasn't made the World Cup squad. So I get it. I get Rob's thinking, but as you say, it could possibly be one that comes to regret.
Yes. So the other big question that Rob had was probably who the reserve batter is in the side, or 2 of them. Obviously, you can go Tristan Stubbs, Ryan Rickleton as reserve batters, but obviously Tristan with his scores in the SA20 at the IPL and in the 50-over game, he's deserved a run in the side. Ryan Rickleton finally gets his chance, but it's at the expense of a Matthew Bretzke, and there wasn't much separating the 2, but Ryan just hit the nod even in SA20 as well as the CSA T20 challenge, just pipping Matthew Bretzke at the end, even though Matthew in the CSA T20 challenge was the number 1 run scorer at the end of that tournament.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think if it's slightly differently, potentially that's what he was thinking. I was thinking more question between Reza and Matthew Bretzke. In
That's an interesting one.
Selection. In terms of if you're looking at individuals, okay, so looking at individuals, where do you want them to perform? You want them to perform at SA20. That's the closest to international cricket rather than the CSA T20 challenge. So his form didn't fall off a cliff. It was still reasonably consistent, but it did drop a little bit in the CSA T20 challenge for Matthew. I don't know if that was a factor, but if I'm going between Reza and Matthew, I'm picking Matthew. I'm saying this as a proviso that when Reza does retire, undoubtedly he should have played more for the Proteas. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Even if he goes to this World Cup and let's say another 2, he's still going to end his career as someone who should have played more for the Proteas. So I'm delighted for Reza to get this call up. He was sensational in the CSA T20 challenge, but I do wonder if perhaps Matthew would have been the better bet in that he's more explosive from the top. Reza sometimes takes a while to get going.
Plays Mr. Catch-up.
Yes.
So on to that point, does the PSL, his work in his run scoring in the PSL with Rassie van der Dussen as well, he's another name that missed out. Does that not count for anything after the SA20? Because that's still also an international tournament.
Yeah, look, it's not an easy decision. And same with the leaving out Vietnam. I don't think any of these decisions are shockers or easy mistakes that are made or on own goals we've seen from cricket South Africa in the past. These are not. These are fine margins. These are choices that Rob's made with a lot of evidence to back either or selection that was available. I think the margins are very, very small. You can make a case for both. I don't think, for example, choosing Reza is a bad selection. I do not think that at all. I think it's a very good selection. I just think that maybe for what we need from the Proteas setup, we need a slightly more explosive person at the top without having to put pressure on Stubbs and Klaasen later on in the innings.
Yeah.
Or Quinton.
Yeah.
That's my only sort of thinking.
So I think the last one on the batting is there's two people who are not here. Rassie van der Dussen and what's his thing? And Faf du Plessis. A lot of people would have wanted Faf du Plessis to be in here. He's still just as good and he's just the cover. Now, thinking about it last night, I was stuck between Reza and Faf, and I went with Reza largely because I think it's his time. I think he's earned a spot at the top, and I kind of feel like Faf's moved, or we should be moving on from Faf. And it's in a time where we actually don't have an issue at the top of the order, right? If, let's say, Timbo is still opening, I'd make a serious case for Faf, right? But I do believe that you've got options, even with the Ryan, with the Matthew, who's not there, with the Rassie van der Dussen, who's not there, who's the other guy I'm talking about, right? And so that's the thing. But from a Rassie perspective as well, right? It's hard to leave out Rassie because Rassie's changed his game and answered the call. Previously, they used to call him the guy who hogs balls, tries to catch up later. But this time, the Rassie we saw in SA20, the Rassie opening with Ryan Rickleton, the Rassie we saw in the CSA T20 challenge, and the Rassie we saw in the PSL is a totally different player. And the fact that he can bat within 1 to 4 in the middle order, it's one of those situations where it's really, really hard on Rassie, because I'm sitting here going, he's done everything, but I kind of feel we've moved on. Similar to that whole Timber, because everyone would say no, Timber, whatever it is, but Timber was in some sort of a discussion because he was in the last Australia tour, right? So, but like Rassie is the one who actually improved his game and worked on it, right? And now he's sitting outside looking in.
Yeah, I think people don't realize the improvement that Rassie has made. I think if you listen to people who talk about things in a T20 perspective and an analytical way, Rassie is sort of pigeonholed still as that chewing up too many balls, puts too much pressure on the rest of his individuals. If you look at Rassie's form recently, he's actually made a conscious effort to change. So his average, if you look, his average has come slightly down, but his strike rate has definitely gone up. So he's, as you said, he has actually changed the way he plays. But I think you're right. I think what was important from Cricket South Africa's point of view is to get the right mix. We didn't want to go into this World Cup being the old age home cricket 11 type of thing, that kind of tag, particularly if we didn't do well in the tournament. So I think that's probably played a part in that. They've been fantastic servants, Faf and Rassie, but we do need to move into a new era, particularly with the regularity of T20 cricket. So we're going to be playing these on a regular basis. We want to give guys who are slightly younger a chance, and they've been knocked down the doors in tournaments that matter. So I could see why they've done that. As you said, you could make a case for Rassi, but I think it's probably the right decision into leaving Rassi and Faf out at this point.
Who do you open with as a final batting question? Riza or Ryan?
Oh, Ryan. Absolutely.
So two lefties.
Right.
Two lefties with a similar game. Okay.
Yeah, just a similar game. Go hard, go big.
And is Riza your 3?
He was, but then I had slight problems with my bowling attack. Then I was gonna have then Aiden was definitely gonna have to bowl 4. Now he absolutely can, but I want the luxury of where he doesn't have to bowl the 4 if not needed.
So in your 11, Stubbs is in.
In my 11, Stubbs is in, and Aiden is a 3.
Okay. Because in my 11, Ryan's the one who's out. So Riza opens with Quinny, Aiden's a 3, and then you have David Millett for Heino Klassen at 4, David Millett at 5, depending on how they feel, and then Stubbsy at 6. But if you don't want Stubbsy in, which I think might be a little bit overkill for our team, because the chances then of Stubbsy making an impact in the game will be minimal, I'll go with Riza at 3 with Ryan opening. And then you've got David Heinrich at 4, 5, 6. And then 7 is your Marco Jansen. And Aiden then in that situation doesn't have to always bowl 4. But it's possible. The options are endless from a batting perspective. Bowling perspective, 2 names. Othniel Bartman, incredible SA20 top wicket taker. His CSA T20 challenge looked a little shaky. He was seen in Delhi with the Daredevils doing the things there. But he obviously didn't play in the IPL. Really great call up for him. The world's his oyster. I think from this point on, he's going to be in every major T20 auction that there is. And then a Gerald Coetzee hasn't had the best of times. It started with injury in the SA20, but they're keeping the faith in him. And in the same adage of pace. And I think it might be the Anurag Nokia insurance plan rather than Nandre Berger being that. And I think that's essentially where Rob went in with those 2.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, there is a little bit of concern on current form. That is a little bit of a concern, and in terms of how our pace bowlers are going. But I think if you're not picking Nokia in this 15, then there's going to be all sorts of criticism. I think he's.
But I wasn't. I didn't. I didn't put him in my 15 that I put out, largely because I sat there going, "You just come back from injury. Your form isn't great, and we've got all these youngsters, bowlers coming out of the wazoo, who are very, very good and can do a job now. I'm not throwing you away forever, but a job for now for this World Cup. I didn't think Anurag was ready to play, but we're taking a risk, and I still think that's the big risk for our World Cup, Tim, is if Anurag Nokia is starting games and not fully or not at that form level, that's going to be the question, right? Over and above a Shamsi not being at the form level, because Shamsi's form is worrying me right now, but it's okay. I trust him to bits, and this World Cup campaign is going to pretty much fall on how Marco Jansen does at 7, and if he has to be dropped into 8 to have a Tristan Stubbs at 7, because Stubbsy can also turn his arm over. That's one. And the other one is, how long do we give Anurag Nokia in this tournament to come right, per se? How long that's going to be?
Yes. So I'm just trying to find our... So we've got our first game is Bangladesh. Bangladesh. And then it's... I think it's Nepal. Yes, Bangladesh and Nepal. Yeah, that's going to be a tricky one because we are entering a period of unknowns. England have done the same. England have picked a injury-ravaged Jofra Archer in May 15. That's a risk. We're picking Anurag Nokia, who isn't injured but has had injuries recently and is struggling. There is absolutely no question of that. I I just think we will have enough, particularly in the opening stages. And I think he will come good. I think he will come good. I certainly hope he will come good, because if he doesn't, it does create a fair bit of headache for us.
Yeah, and our World Cups have gone down to selection issues, and now we're bringing in that extra risk, and I would have loved that extra risk to go away, and it just be a form question, right? Because you take a chance on a 75% Anuk Nokia over a Joel Kutsia, or even an Othniel Bartman. And that's what I don't want us to be playing with at this point in time, right? Is he fit enough? Is he not? And that type of thing. And playing that gamble, and to be like, nah, I would have always gone in with a 75% Anuk care. It's not the type of questions, but he is fit enough. It's just a form question for Anuk, and that's where those questions were lost. But happy with the team. I think it's a big one. There's some just sad issues. Some obviously guys will be disappointed today. Lungi is one of them. Vian Mulder, Rassi van der Dissen, even Andre Berger being a traveling reserve, but it's a lot of learnings for him going forward. For a guy like Ananda, you could say that he's the future of our cricket, and so is Matthew Bretzke. And I don't mind taking Matthew Bretzke to the World Cup as a traveling reserve, so you can see the team, you can learn, and everything else. Guys who fell off completely, Tim, just before we talk about the other team. Donovan Ferreira has fallen off completely out of the radar. Obviously, Temba Bavuma, he was part of that other Australia side. He's no longer in the reckoning. It's obviously
everybody's favorite Purvis not really doing the business.
Yeah.
And look, those individuals can't really have any complaints. I think they will play for South Africa again. I think their time will come. But for this World Cup, they can't sit there and go, well, it's unfair or unjust. You had 2 tournaments to perform. If you put the IPL aside for a moment, the focus for us at the time was SA20, CSA 2020 Challenge, and they didn't do it. That's the important thing.
Yeah, that's the difference between them being on a plane to the West Indies and sitting this one out. So that's really, really key, and hopefully they'll be able to make the next World Cup as well. So it's not just because T20 World Cups happen every year. They just like come in cycles. But
yes,
cool. So Rob Walters has a conundrum. We're playing the West Indies in like warm-up matches, but he won't have his IPL players available. But now here comes the fun part. So you named the second team of players who are going to represent us in this, and to try and bed in some of the tactics that he might use in the World Cup to some of the players who aren't in the IPL and have been selected. So here comes Rob then selected a squad, 15-man squad, that's going to play against the West Indies. So a lot of the guys who didn't make it are here. And they have a chance to prove it because, traveling reserve spots are available, 2 of them potentially. So here is the provisional squad. It may change depending on who's knocked out early in the IPL and everything else, but here it is. Othniel Bartman, who's in the World Cup squad. Matthew Bretzke, who just missed out of the World Cup squad. Bjorn Fortuin, who's in the squad. Reza Hendricks going to the World Cup. Patrick Kruger gets his debut call-up from the Warriors after an incredible limited overs season. Vian Mulder also coming into that. We spoke about him. Lungingiti is a traveling reserve. He's inside there. Ngabayomzi Peter from the DP World Lions after dazzling us all in the CSA T20. We have a leg spinner, guys. We really do. A leg spinner who we can take to the world. Ryan Rickleton, he's going to the World Cup. Andile Pechluwayo, who's fallen off. He's one we didn't talk about. Tabré Shamsi, he's going to the World Cup. And Rassi van der Dissen, who's not going to the World Cup and has fallen off the selection, but is going to play against the West Indies. What can you take? I look at this team, Tim, and there are guys here who are there to prove something. Bretzke, Peter, Ngabayomzi Peter, Patrick Kruger is going to be fighting for a spot, or fighting to stay in the mix, right? But there's others who've played for this team before, Pechluwayo, Ngiti, Rassi van der Dissen, who you could say it's more of a last chance saloon, and only if something amazing happens, will they get a look in even beyond the World Cup, right? And so from a motivation perspective, there isn't much, but it's still a very strong squad that we're putting out for the West Indies.
It is. This is the sort of thing that I want to see more of. This is sort of a wider point. When we go on these tours, like put World Cup aside, I want us to have a second 11, like an SAA setup, which we have spoken about previously, and this is a sort of that. It's really a South African team, but it's missing obviously the guys that are going to the World Cup. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good squad. I think it's a solid squad. I think it's a squad that's going to be competitive against the West Indies. I'm very excited to see, as you said, the newish guys. So the Bertskis, the Mulders, the Peters. I know there was a lot of talk about Peter making the World Cup squad.
He was too far away.
I'm glad he didn't. His time World Cup, he had a fantastic tournament. This is the sort of thing we need to build him in slowly. Get accustomed to the situation. I hope he plays. I don't want him to just sit on the fence. I actually want him to play in the series. So that'll be a huge experience for him on pitches that will suit him. They do offer a bit of spin, so that he will actually enjoy bowling on those pitches. So I'm looking forward to it. And often these T20 series, they pass me by, to be fair. They really do. But I'm actually really looking forward to it.
Yeah. And this one is going to be quite intriguing for us as well.
Yes, indeed.
No, yeah. And because we're playing in the West Indies, we're playing against the West Indies. They are a tough opposition. And this is our future. And the way that's how I see this thing, it's a mixture between the past, because we need help, and the future. Patrick Kruger, Naba Peter, Matthew Bretzke, Ryan Rickleton, Othniel Bartman, what they can bring. And for those guys, it's about, can I make the starting 11? What do I need to do to make the starting 11? So, for instance, it might be even a straight shootout between Riza and Ryan in the series. Also, it might also be in a straight shootout. It might be in an audition for Bartman to open, to get into the starting 11, right? Naba Peter wants to be back again for more T20 series. Naba Peter wants to be selected for SA20. He wants to be in consideration for the IPL. And this is where he's going to learn, right? Tabraiz Shams is fighting for an opening spot against Kesh. He needs to prove that he still got it, right? Bjorn Fortuin as well. Is he better than Kesh? Is he not? The jury's been out for a while in limited overs cricket. And if they've just fell on Kesh, but there's an opportunity for Bjorn to come in because Kesh is no longer leading the side. So there's a lot of things to play for in this series and a lot of things to watch. The other thing, and this is my final point, is to watch the style of cricket we're going to be playing. We're going to be instilling that style of cricket into the newest. And so there's a lot of installations of tactics, of playing, of fielding positions and the like. So those are the things we're going to be watching going into this T20 series more than outside, because we don't have the IPL guys, but it's going to be that, trying to get the bulk of this team going. And it's funny they haven't named a captain. Who would you pick as captain?
Let me have a look at the squad. Let me have a look. I tell you what. I think I'm gonna go for Jan. I'm gonna say for Jan, right? You are actually you're there. You're on the cusp. You're there. We know you've done everything, and your non-selection of the World Cup was literally a flip of a coin. It could have gone either way. I know you're disappointed. You've done everything. You performed exactly how we want you to do, particularly with the batting. Now I want you to take on a little bit more responsibility. Lead from the front of the series. Lead from the front. Show us what you can do, and take us forward. The safe option, of course, would be Riza. That would be the safe, easy option. Yeah. But if you want to create leaders, go for somebody who's going to be there for the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, most definitely. And there's no indictment to Vian. I just feel for him. and want him in the squad. I think he'd add a lot more to this team. But yeah, congratulations to everyone who's made it to the both squads. And yeah, all the best for the World Cup. That's the end of our emergency podcast. Hopefully we won't see any drama come the World Cup. But outside of that, Tim, thank you very much for joining quickly and discussing this team. Outside of that, goodbye and lesale kakahis.